Our regional transportation system is critical to the safe and efficient movement of people and products. We depend on our transportation system to take us to work, school, and recreational activities. This same system also brings products into and out of the region, provides the means for emergency vehicles to promptly respond to a call, and connects us to the services we need. In total, the regional transportation system is an integral component of our social and economic vitality, which is why it is important to keep this system in a state of good repair. While necessary, transportation improvements can be costly and take several years to implement. Just as a bill requires many steps before it can become a law, a transportation improvement project must follow the transportation planning process prior to the start of construction. This video will walk you through the steps of the transportation planning process and explain how to apply for federal funds to assist in advancing a roadway improvement project from an idea into reality. While many transportation problems, such as extreme congestion or severe pavement deterioration, are rather obvious, it is important to document the problem and to identify the most appropriate solution through a transportation planning study. There are a number of ways to document a transportation problem. The important thing is to utilize a data-driven process that explores a variety of alternatives to be considered for implementation. At the regional level, this begins with the Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP for short. The RTP outlines the direction of transportation planning and identifies the short and long-range needs of the regional transportation system. Areas of congestion are monitored as part of the congestion management process. Areas with a history of safety problems are monitored through the Top 100 High Crash Intersections report. These documents track the effectiveness of planned transportation improvements and also identify areas for future study. In order to be eligible for federal funds, a project must be included as part of an approved regional transportation plan. A transportation planning study can vary greatly in size and scope. Typically, a transportation study will collect a variety of data in the area of concern. This data will be analyzed and used to identify any problems and develop appropriate improvement alternatives. Each alternative will be studied to determine its advantages and disadvantages. Public participation is sought to assist in identifying a preferred alternative or set of alternatives to recommend for construction. The Pioneer Valley region consists of 43 incorporated cities and towns. Each has a responsibility to provide for the maintenance of their local transportation facilities and to ensure that the regional transportation system can safely accommodate the existing demand. A significant portion of each municipal budget is expended for transportation purposes. Communities also receive funding from the Commonwealth, referred to as Chapter 90 funds, for transportation purposes. While this money assists in the maintenance of the transportation system, it does not begin to cover the total amount necessary to fund roadway improvement projects.
This combines an awful lot of needs from going green, trying to do bike path and congestion mitigation improvements, to large-scale transportation projects, to bringing online new PVTA buses and new routes, to rail bed and train improvements, to looking at what the future is for air transportation and cargo transportation in the Pioneer Valley. So there really is a huge umbrella of transportation needs.
The needs for the infrastructure dollars are just, the costs are so huge that there's no way that a municipality, even if they waited a lifetime, could save up that kind of money to afford some of these projects.
Every roadway is classified according to a classification scheme defined by the Federal Highway System. Under this system, roadways are grouped into a series of classes based on the intended level of service they provide. There are a total of 7 classification categories, ranging from interstate highways, which serve substantial statewide and interstate travel, to local roadways, which serve shorter trips and local adjacent land uses. Roadways are also classified as urban or rural, based on the population density of the areas they serve. In an urban area, all roadways except those classified as local roads are eligible for federal highway funds. In rural areas, both rural minor collectors and local roadways are ineligible for federal highway funds. These lower classifications of roadways comprise the majority of roadway miles for many rural areas of our region. The Pioneer Valley region is designated as a Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO. This means the population of the urbanized area of the region is greater than 200,000. The MPO oversees the transportation planning process in the region and is comprised of a total of 10 representatives, 4 from state and regional agencies, and 6 locally elected officials that represent specific subregions in the Pioneer Valley. The MPO jointly develops, reviews, and endorses planning documents, such as the Regional Transportation Plan and the Transportation Improvement Program. All transportation improvement projects that seek federal funds must be approved by the MPO.
The road boundaries, the community boundaries, really don't matter much when you're looking at a regional transportation plan. So it's helpful for me to sit on a regional board and talk to other elected officials, other mayors, planners, people that have an interest in the transportation agenda for the entire Pioneer Valley, whether it be buses, whether it be financing, whether it be interstate road connections or local roads. All of it helps for us as a group to understand what the needs are in the entire valley rather than just being parochial, and where our parochial needs, where our local needs may fit into that larger picture. Understanding that with state and federal dollars for road improvements or other transportation improvements, there's a limited pie to go around, and you need to figure out where you fit in that pie, not just for the short term, but really on a longer term planning perspective.
The Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, is the management tool used to coordinate the advancement of transportation improvement projects from the design phase to the construction phase. The TIP is a priority listing of projects to be constructed within a given federal fiscal year. Each project included on the TIP is evaluated by the MPO staff to assess its transportation merits in a variety of areas, such as congestion relief, safety benefits, and bicycle and pedestrian amenities. Projects on the TIP must be financially constrained and may not exceed an estimated federal funding target each year. Projects advance through the TIP based on their current design status and the availability of funding, and the list is updated annually.
In a word, the TIP process is absolutely essential to a community like Hatfield and to other small communities. As local officials are painfully aware, if you look at the trend of Chapter 90 dollars available to the communities, that's on a flat line, and in contrast, the requirements certainly are spiking at the same time. So the wedge, or the delta between the two, have been growing over the years.
If you want to get funded, you need to engage people from Mass Highway, now the Mass Department of Transportation, in the regions for Division 1 and Division 2 early, and make sure everybody is in on what your need is and how you should address it. The more questions you ask, the more times you ask for advice, the more times you make that contact, the more chances you're going to have to get your project funded.
The Massachusetts Department of Transportation, or MassDOT, lays out the steps to advance a project from the conceptual stage to the construction stage in its Project Development and Design Guide. Any project can be included for consideration in the TIP project database. However, a project will not be considered for construction funding unless the following steps are completed so the project can advance through the design process.
Definitely get started. If you can find, or they can find funds to get the design done, go ahead and do that, because that just puts you miles ahead on the TIP process.
The first step is the completion of a Project Needs Form, or PNF. This form is typically prepared by the municipality and submitted to the District Highway Office of MassDOT. It includes information about the current transportation conditions, identification of the problem and need for improvement, as well as information on right-of-way, potential environmental impacts, and impacts to historic structures or districts.
You have to articulate your case as part of a broader vision for transportation improvements in the valley, but also be very specific to your community, saying this is what we need. we need this kind of a project because of A, B, C, and D. Now, as long as you can articulate your vision, there's a very good chance that you'll get funded.
Based on the PNF, the district office will make a recommendation determining if the project is appropriate to be funded through the TIP and if further study is necessary. Upon approval of the project needs form, a project initiation form should be completed and again submitted to the district office. This form requires more detailed information, such as the anticipated environmental impacts of the project, the level of public participation completed for the project, and the potential impacts of the project on mobility, safety, the local economy, and the community. It is often helpful to include supporting information, such as copies of past transportation studies, recent data collected as part of the project, and letters of support. Project initiation forms are brought to the Mass DOT Highway Division's Project Review Committee, which reviews, evaluates, and discusses the proposed project and determines if the project warrants approval. The Project Review Committee will determine if the project is eligible for federal funding and if sufficient information exists to advance the project into the design stage. All projects that are approved by the Project Review Committee receive a project number that is then used to track the project through design and construction. The project design process is often the longest stage in advancing a project to construction.
It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a planning process, so you should be looking forward to projects you're going to need in 5 or 10 years and start planning on pursuing those.
Funding of the cost to design a transportation improvement project typically is the responsibility of the community. It is highly advantageous to obtain the services of a licensed professional engineer to oversee the design of your project.
And our experience, I would say, if you were very, very aggressive, you might be able to get something done in a 3-year time frame, but not likely. Today, just with all the permitting that goes along with it, typically you're not building roads in the middle of nowhere that there's not a wetland or not a right-of-way issue or something. The jobs typically wind up in the 4 to 5 year range.
I think it varies a bit depending on the project. We've done some Main Street intersections that probably through conception to the end of design, including the hiring of engineers and local approvals, probably takes a couple of years, whereas same conception, public support, and design of a rail trail has taken 5 to 7 years. So.
The first level of review for a transportation improvement project is at the 25% design stage. In reality, more than 25% of the design has been completed at this point. However, this is the first opportunity for Mass DOT and Federal Highway to comment on the layout, geometry, environmental impacts, and other details of the project. At this stage, the project also typically begins any required environmental review through the MEPA process. A public hearing is also held at this stage to allow the public to review the plans and comment on the proposed project.
Second part is, once the project is in design and is moving, is to keep the project moving forward. There's obstacles, issues that come up. You need to address those as soon as possible. Delaying addressing issues will just delay your project at a later date. So one thing is to keep the project moving, and that involves an investment of municipal time. Municipal staff have a variety of tasks that they do daily. When you have a TIP project, you need to address things quickly to keep the project moving. The quicker you get it done, probably the lower the cost it's going to be and the easier of a chance you're going to have for federal funding.
At the 75% design stage, the project begins to enter the final stages of design. At this stage, more information is provided on the horizontal and vertical alignment of the roadway, quality of the soil, and impacts on private property. A more detailed cost estimate to construct the project is developed, and all necessary permits and agreements should be secured. The project is again reviewed by both Mass DOT and Federal Highway.
The local official needs to understand primarily up front that unless their program is part of the transportation improvement program, they're not even in the ballgame. They're not competing for funds. Local officials need to understand the process overall, the roles and responsibilities of the various players, who those players are. They need to be supportive of their representative at the Joint Transportation Committee, who's there at the table articulating their requirements. They also need to be supportive of their representative at the Metropolitan Planning Organization.
At the 100% design stage, the project is further refined to again produce a final cost estimate and develop all necessary agreements. All agreements for any right-of-way required to construct the project should be complete, and all necessary permits should be in place. Once this has been completed satisfactorily and the project has been programmed on the tip, MassDOT advertises the project, reviews all submitted bids, and awards the project for construction.
Because you need to be visionary about where you want the infrastructure in your community to be down the road, not tomorrow. Anybody can lay asphalt down.
I do want to emphasize up front that success is a team effort and only comes from a team effort.
Involve your city leadership, involve the public, get out there. Don't expect it to happen overnight.
Conversation's always good. I think if MassDOT knows a project's coming, even several years out, it's something that they can line up and know when they're going to have to do their reviews.
A couple of things I'd say as takeaways for new local officials involved in this process. One, your communication, collaboration is absolutely essential all the way along. And two, the process is fair. Three, local communities, in fact, do get supported. And you, the local official, have a key role in achieving that success at really every stage of the process.
It is a national priority for the United States government to engage communities in these planning processes. Every state has one, every region has one. And the idea is that if we all work together, we can fulfill a lot of the transportation needs that are unmet now and make plans not just for the here and now, but for down the road 5, 10, 20 years, because that's how long these projects are going to have to last. So the idea is, before we're thinking, be visionary.
Advancing a project from concept to construction is a long, complicated process. Using the transportation planning process and MassDOT project development and design guide can assist in simplifying this process, resulting in a project that improves safety and mobility for a variety of transportation modes with long-term benefits.